Hey, it's the Midnight Raven, and today I wanted to do another review video. If you watched the previous one, I did everything I watched through December, January, and February when it came to movies. Today I want to talk about the documentaries I watched throughout January and February, both on Paramount and Netflix. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 technically that I have watched programs and documentaries throughout January and February. Unfortunately, I don't have dates. I'm starting from March to write down all the dates. I do keep the movies on letterbox.com so I know when I watch them, but I can't keep track of the documentaries, which is kind of sucky. But I am going to keep a list of them and the dates I watched them. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. I am the Midnight Raven. This is something I'm starting to do each month, where I keep a list of all the movies and all the documentaries, and I'm going to tell you what I thought of them. So let's start with a very controversial documentary that I watched, which was the Marilyn Manson Unmasked documentary that was on, I think it was E4. Now, Marilyn Manson had controversy for a lot of years. He's been in and out of court. This time he won, and this time it proves that the Me Too movement, as good as it is only good when the truth comes out. And unfortunately, Marilyn Manson once again beat the justice system and proves that just because a bunch of women band together and say that something happened without actual proof, it didn't happen. There was a coup against him, and for whatever reason, one of his exes just did not want him to move on. And he won his case. It was all thrown out. So Marilyn Manson is now on tour. He has an album come out, and it was a really good in-depth going back to how Marilyn Manson started with the Lunchbox Kids, and it goes right the way through up until just before the court case is finalized recently. So definitely go watch it if you're a fan of Marilyn Manson. It does look at both sides. You do have Marilyn, and then you do have the opposite side of all the people that were, I guess you want to call, against him. And it does look at both sides. But it is pretty obvious, judging by the evidence that was put against him, that they didn't really have a case. So, Marilyn Manson fan, I implore you to go watch it. Next, another interesting documentary. I watched the Johnny versus Amber Heard. So this was Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard in basically a defamation case. She had accused him of being an abuser, among other things. Amber lost. It was a washout for Amber. She couldn't prove hardly anything. Johnny, who from the start said he was innocent, yes, he may have a slight temper. Yes, he may occasionally get drunk and do drugs. That is a rock star Hollywood life. But she couldn't prove anything but the fact that he liked to have an occasional drink and had a bit of a temper. There was not much evidence to go on for that. And Johnny won on all his, and Amber actually won on only one of hers. So Johnny was immortalized and proven to be innocent. There are still people to this day that believe Amber Heard's story. Not going to say anything about that. I was a Johnny fan from the start, had no belief in anything that was against him. Next, I watch how the Nazis lost the war. Can't say that too many times. I get demonetized and they won't allow it. This was an interesting documentary. It's 6 or 7 episodes looking at how the war went from being fairly in Germany's favor to just outright annihilation of the German forces. How they messed up when they invaded Russia, and a lot of other mistakes that he made along the way. It talked about his assassination attempts on him, and then it obviously showed his ultimate demise, where he took his own life in a bunker, where he was shot. The same as his wife, which escapes my mind. Ava Brown, I can't remember her name. But yeah, that was an interesting documentary. It's a hard watch. They do feature some pretty hard topics like the Holocaust in it. It does show a lot of persecution, a lot of death. It's not an easy watch. Must say it's not an easy watch, but it is important to watch these kind of documentaries. The next thing I watched was a reality series called Love is Blind. And in this, you had a bunch of participants that sat each side of a room, basically, two rooms, with a blind in the middle where they couldn't see each other. Then I could ask questions, they could sing to each other. You could do anything you want, but you couldn't see them. And then when you proposed to them and you proposed marriage, you could then see each other, and then the goal was to be married at the end of it. Now, unfortunately, I watched the first season of this. It did not go well. Did go no. We had some happy and some sad occasions, but I don't know whether the theory is proved or whether love is blind or not. Some of the marriages went through, some of them didn't. Personally, I was like 50-50 on the concept of love is blind. Like, you don't necessarily need to see a person to fall in love with them. I fall in love with their personality, stuff like that. They do say love is blind. This was only the first season. There's been tons and tons of seasons, but I felt a little bit lonely before Valentine's. Love was in the air, and I kind of wanted to watch a bit of a love fest, I guess. So next, to cheer myself up, we watched a bit of Squid Games. Yes, we watched Squid Games Series 2, Part 1, or Series 2, however you want to put it. The third part is coming out on June the 27th, which is actually the day after my birthday. This one came out the 26th of December, I believe, which was Boxing Day. I didn't see it at Boxing Day. I didn't have Netflix then, so I couldn't watch it. I literally got Netflix like 4 weeks ago. So I watched it. I didn't like it. Not going to lie. I love the backstory of the man that did the games to get you to Squid Game. The briefcase man, as we call him. That was kind of interesting. I found it dragged on a bit. I found they could have had more in there, but they had already decided to split the series, so they kind of had to drag the first one out so then they could do a second one. So I get it, but it fell a little bit flat. I'm not gonna lie, this series was kind of maybe a 3 out of 5. The first one I would watch over and over again. This one, not so much. And the third part, God willing, they put more into it. Because for me, the games in the second part were a bit naff. No real suspense, no real it kind of felt a bit rushed. I know it's been a couple of years. It still felt rushed, and I don't think the concept with that. I don't know if it's the same director or writers. It just fell flat. Next, I watched Are You the One? This is where a bunch of people, I think there were 11 couples in total, 11 single men and 11 single women, are put in a house, and the idea is to find their compatible one based on tests, questionnaires, physiological, yada yada. And the idea is to find your perfect match within these 11 people. If you do that, you then won £100,000. But if one of the couples didn't find their significant other, nobody got anything. And the idea was to find your one that you were most compatible with. Not the one you fancied, the one you liked, the most compatible based on tests, psychiatric tests, compatibility tests that they'd done previously before going in. And the idea was to find the one. And the upset on spending a couple of days with somebody, going to the end and finding they weren't your match, and then having to split to then find your match. And if you didn't want to, you risked the entire group's money. It was kind of good. There is an English Are You the One, I believe, as well, which I haven't watched yet. Same concept, same thing. But I do plan to watch it. Next was My Son Jeffrey. This was the video. These were the telephone calls from jail from Jeffrey Dahmer to his dad. Now, I've watched Jeffrey Dahmer documentaries, loads of them over the years. The new Jeffrey Dahmer documentary series they did. This was actual tapings from the prison to Jeffrey Dahmer's dad, kind of explaining what happened when he killed these men and stored them in his flat. Now, I guess the question is whether you are made into a murderer or whether you were born into a murderer. Jeffrey was in a tumultuous family life, if you wanna call it that. Parents split. He ended up living with his grandma. He had an alcohol problem. He seemed to have difficulties. Obviously, he ended up in jail, and he actually did die in jail. He was attacked in the gym, I believe it was, and was beaten to death, I believe, by a dumbbell. As painful as that sounds. Yeah. It was a hard thing to listen to. It did go into quite a lot of detail. Obviously, it was tapes from the jail, so you had quite a lot of in-depth. So if you're kind of like trigger warning kind of thing, maybe not for you. Next, I watched Dating Naked. So this was Rylan, the host, where a bunch of people went into a house, stripped off all their clothes, and walked around stark bollock naked. And the idea was to find the person attractive on the inside, even though they were butt naked. Just another terrible concept of a thing. How many ways can you fall in love? We've got Love is Blind. We've got Are You the One, where they use compatibility tests. Love is Blind, where you don't see the person. Now we're seeing the person stark bollock naked. I mean, how many other ways is there to fall in love and find the one? It was an interesting concept. Did it work? You got to see a bunch of people naked. You got to see a bunch of people sunbathing. Did it really do anything? I guess. They did find some couples, but really, the TV's just doing it to put people naked and like shock tactics. They don't really care about you finding love. It was interesting, but honestly, yeah. And then the last documentary I have watched in February so far, and today is the 26th, was the Waco documentary that recently came out on Paramount. So this was about the Branch Davidian, and this was to do with the whole Waco situation with David Koresh, where he had a bunch of followers, and the FBI and the government wanted to arrest them because they were taking weapons and they were modifying them. And then when the Branch Davidians didn't give up, they bombarded the place with music, with lights, and then eventually they put CS gas into the building, which caught fire, and then the entire place burnt down with the women and children trapped in the basement. And 76 people died, and 35 had been taken out of the building within the weeks before the event happened, and a few survived on the day that the Waco building was, if you want to call it, stampeded. David Koresh believed in the 7 seals, which basically was to save humanity. He thought he was hearing the voice of Jesus or God. Kind of a wacko. A lot of people believed in him. People still believe in the Branch Davidian to this day. It is still a part of Christianity. There is a second part to the Waco thing. There is the Waco The Aftermath, which I haven't watched yet, so that will come in next month's review. But it was a really good series. It was 6 or 7 episodes. It's very short, but they pack a lot into a very small amount of time. You do get into the mind of Koresh, and they do go through the military part. They go through the parts of what it's like to be in the place and stuff. But there is a second part which I haven't watched yet, and that is the aftermath of Waco. What happened afterwards? There was an investigation by the FBI and the government due to the severity of whether, when the CS gas were put in the building, the fire was started by the Branch Davidians, or whether the CS gas caused the fire that killed everybody. So it was an interesting watch. Would highly recommend it. It's called Waco. What's the title? It's just called Waco. And then there is a second part called Waco The Aftermath, which is one of the things I intend to watch now. Basically after I finished doing this. So let me know what you thought. This is what I watched documentary wise and reality TV wise. If you want to see the movies I've watched, you can check me out on letterboxd.com, which is where I rank all my movies. I'm the Midnight Raven over there. And then you will have seen the video reviews I put up of the things I watched throughout February. And I gave you a star rating, told you what I thought of them, whether I would rewatch them. Let me know whether you saw any of these documentaries or any of these programs. Go check out the movie review videos, because I am ready to watch another movie tonight already. We are on Movie Central, and I'm also going to watch the Waco Aftermath as well. I've got a bunch of other stuff that I want to watch throughout February, or end of February / March. And then I also hope to go to the actual cinema this month. Who knows? But like and subscribe, give us a big thumbs up. If you want to support the channel, a PayPal, Super Chat, or Super Thanks, all goes into the time it takes to make these videos. And if you want to see more from me, don't forget TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. And I will see you very soon for another roundup for the month of documentaries that I watched. Bye, guys.